Now coming up, shipping disruptions on the Red Sea and how it's fueling inflation. We'll continue that conversation with Brandon Daniels, Exiger CEO, next on Wall Street Week Daily with David Weston. This is Bloomberg. Wall Street Week airs every Friday at 6 p.m. New York time here on Bloomberg. But every day at this time, we will have a Wall Street Week conversation daily with David Weston. David Weston, it's great to see you.
Great to be with you. Thank you for welcoming me.
Yeah.
It's great to be having you. So I want to continue a conversation you just had, actually, Katie, about the Red Sea and what's going on with supply chains. We turned now to somebody who's a real expert in supply chains, and particularly how technology may help things. Brandon Daniels is the CEO of Exiger. That is a company that's just been acquired by Carlyle, I must say. So, Brandon, thanks for being with us. Let's start with the Red Sea. What are we seeing so far? Is it affecting, as a practical matter, the supply chains going through the Red Sea?
Well, it's absolutely affecting the supply chains that are coming through the Red Sea. And you're seeing over 350 ships that have already been subject to disruption, David. So it is a seismic proportion of the total flow from Asia to Europe that's right now subject to disruption. And it's leading to, this epicenter of risk now reverberating across all of our other ports. So you're starting to see shipping rates increase on the East Coast. You're seeing companies decide to ship directly from China or the Southern Pacific out to the United States through the ports of LA. And so it's absolutely disrupting supply chains. And we're already starting to see that in the prices where we're doubling or tripling shipping rates in the last month.
Well, Brandon, what have your conversations sounded like in the last month? When you're talking to your clients, how concerned are they about this Red Sea situation?
Well, the current economic climate has two competing factors, and we've been dealing with these competing factors for years now, really since the pandemic. The first is the supply push, and we're seeing that supply chains are subject to substantial disruption. That upstream supply chain, all of your suppliers and your ability to execute and deliver, it's subject to a lot of volatility. So there's what's going on in the Red Sea right now, which is increasing the timelines to actually delivering finished product. It's also creating a reverberating effect where port congestion and land logistics are starting to, feel the pain of, major shipping delays and disruptions. But at the same time, you have the Panama Canal, which is right now in the midst of a drought. And, Maersk is having to use the land bridge to get goods over this major thoroughfare. And so when you have supply push creating these problems, you then have to look at the other side of the equation, which is what is inflation, what are interest rates, and what is consumer demand doing. During the pandemic, we saw consumer demand actually grow substantially, and we saw interest rates and inflation obviously grow substantially as well. And so that actually put more pressure on the market because you had the supply push and the demand pull. In this case, we have the supply push, but we don't have the demand. Consumer demand has been down, and interest rates are starting to flatten. And hopefully, when we hear what the Fed says, we start to see interest rates come back down. And so that's going to ease a little bit. So while we're seeing supply push right now, because of these major supply disruptions, our customers right now are looking at the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months and saying, we're not going to see big price disruption. But if this issue continues to sustain and maintain, which the Houthis have said, they are determined to attack not just American ships, but all ships in the region until the Gaza-Israel war and disruption is over. But they've said until there's peace, there's no peace for them. And that could mean that in 9 months, 12 months, when consumer demand is back up, when interest rates start to normalize, it could mean something bigger for us from a price and disruption perspective in the supply chain.
Brandon, you mentioned two very different parts of the world. That is the Red Sea on the one hand and the Panama Canal on the other. Is the way that it works is really the Red Sea is going to hit Europe sooner and more than the United States, and vice versa with respect to the Panama Canal and the United States?
That's absolutely right. The only thing that's different about this supply chain is it is a global network. So shipping is 80% of goods logistics, full stop. So 80% of the goods that you receive, the things that you get from Amazon, the things that you get from Walmart, the things that you get on an everyday basis, they are coming through shipping lanes. And so it does hit Europe first, and then it does hit the United States second. But it's actually so interdependent. It's kind of like oil, right? Where you see it as a backbone to the entire economy. Shipping, supply chain, logistics, that is a backbone for all of commerce. And so it will hit Europe first, at least this Red Sea situation does. And then the Panama Canal sort of hits globally significantly all at once because it is a major thoroughfare. And between those, we will start to see the United States and the European shipping lanes get more expensive. The thing here, though, is that this is a global network that's fragile. We saw that in the pandemic. We saw that again after the Russia invasion of Ukraine. This global network is subject to a lot of volatility. And so when we see volatilities in markets, even past the rally that we saw at the end of last year and into the beginning of this year, when people start to get into volatility, which is what we're seeing in geopolitical risk, what we're seeing in terms of climate change, that's going to lead markets to be more bearish because it's less predictable. And that's what we're seeing right now across these different shipping thoroughfares.
Well, Brandon, like David said, I mean, the Red Sea and the Panama Canal, two different parts of the world, and of course, dealing with two different issues, as you alluded to. Of course, geopolitics in the Red Sea, climate change when it comes to the Panama Canal. What is the bigger medium to long-term concern for your clients? Is it escalating geopolitics or is it climate change?
I think they are both issues that our customers are looking at strategically for the next 5 to 7 years. I think in terms of geopolitics, we're looking at long-term systemic changes to our infrastructure, right? So we've seen a lot of manufacturing move from Asia into places like Mexico, but that is still subject to geopolitical concerns, because if we shut borders, then that creates a higher cost to shipping across the border from Mexico to the United States, and actually could lead to shipping delays like we saw in El Paso at the end of last year. And so what our customers are looking at is, how do you get to a place where you can navigate these disruptions? And that means diversified supply chains, driven more by automation and technology, meaning that you have artificial intelligence that's helping you to navigate where there is a high probability of disruption. And then that lastly means investing in innovative ways to diversify your supply chains across maybe different materials or different suppliers, or making 5 to 7 year investments in embedded or direct spend programs where you actually buy the metals that your OEMs are going to use 5 to 7 years out in advance and directly, so that you have control over those supply and shipping lines. I think people are really starting to get concerned about how much control they have about their serial production line, right? 5% of a car, only 5% of the cost of a car is actually borne by the end manufacturer. 95% of the rest of the cost comes from the serial production line that they have no control over. And that's where we're going to see supply chain reform start to really revolutionize the way that we think about manufacturing and serial production today.
Brandon, this is very helpful. Thank you so much for being with us. That's Brandon Daniels. He's CEO of Exiger.